thanks for tuning in again. This is Kenneth McKnight, the Unhinged Gamer. Kenny McKnight, not Kenneth McKnight. I'm keeping this because I don't care. And today with me is Chris Woodside. He has a channel, NES Complex. Chris, thanks for coming on here today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Kenny.
It's only been what, about 2 months now? We've been trying to put
well,
this
we
together?
talked about it, and we were supposed to do it about a month ago, and something came up where I couldn't do it. So here we are. I'm glad we finally are able to sit down and talk, though.
Absolutely. I've been wanting to ask since we first logged on, what is the collection behind you on the wall there?
What's that?
Yeah.
So the dark ones are Super Nintendo, and then Nintendo is all the different colors. So it's mostly Super Nintendo and regular Nintendo. And this is not the whole collection. These are just the ones that I put out. This particular shelf only has so much space, and these are some of my favorites. I have boxes of games, but I don't have a lot of space to display things in my current place. So it's mostly just boxes and closets.
I thought that's what that was. I just wasn't sure because I was trying to make out some of them. I'm like, it's so tiny way back there behind you.
It's actually not even that far. I guess this camera just distorts it.
Well, it's also the picture's like that big on my screen.
That could be, yeah. Yeah, but those are those universal game cases. It was one of my earliest videos.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah, when I did that so long ago, I just seen it somewhere. I forget where, if it was an article or maybe some other little video had talked about it. And I just thought that's an awesome idea. And I ran with it. And, now I see a ton of people have it. I don't think it has to do with me. I like to, in a dream world, I would think, yay, I did that. Maybe that's my contribution to retro, but I don't think so. I just think that it looks really cool that way. It really gives that library feel.
Yeah, because growing up around here, several of the places that had game rentals, that's the cases they had. So I remember when I saw that video, I was like, I remember those. I thought, man, that makes me feel old that I forgot about them until I saw the video.
Oh, yeah. When you forget things, when you've forgotten more than you know.
I told my wife, I was like, yeah, when I start actually getting the collection built up again proper, I'm going to have to buy those because those are what I want now that I'd seen it. So
well, they are a little bit pricey.
Once I get it going, you can take credit for that one.
The expensive part is printing all of the inserts. The cases themselves, although now from what I understand, the company is no longer selling them, so you have to buy them secondhand. That's what I've heard. I haven't looked. I haven't been in the market for them for quite a while now, but I think there's a point where I'm going to have to pretty much abandon them too. It's just, hundreds of games that I'm never going to end up casing.
Yeah. So I know that's the only problem with the collecting is it's the little things that get the money in there that you don't think about beyond just, I got the game now.
I know. Yep. Especially if you're all trying to preserve them.
So
keep them out of the sun.
When did you first start working on your game collection?
Well, honestly, a lot of those games are the games I had. I didn't sell. When it comes to Nintendo and Super Nintendo, I didn't sell anything. Growing up, at least. Later, Nintendo 64, I definitely did a lot of trading in at GameStop. That was kind of a big time for that. And GameCube. But now I pretty much don't sell anything. I started collecting again, though, as an adult, probably 2010, maybe. So before I started a channel.
I think the rise of GameStop did hurt a lot of people in that age range there with, if you're trying to collect now, it's like, so many games I got rid of years ago that I could still have.
Yep. I always traded. I traded with my best friend when it was Nintendo days. We would trade all the time. Like once a week we traded. It was always trading for keeps. But I was fortunate because his family must have had a little more money than my family because I don't remember actually getting a bunch of new games. Like in my entire Nintendo career, I can't imagine I got more than 10, 15 maybe. But somehow I had probably 40 games. But it must have been through, I'd get 2 and I'd give him 1. I'd get 2, I'd give him 1. And then he'd miss the games that he traded me. He's like, oh, I wish I could play that again. And he'd trade me 2 for that one again. So it just over time would build up again. He never cared.
I've done a few of those trades where afterwards I regretted it. I think the biggest regret I ever had was I traded a copy of Final Fantasy VIII for a used copy of Lunar. And I beat Lunar and promptly wanted to play 8 again, and he wouldn't trade back. I was like, oops.
Yep.
Now, of course, I think that Lunar is worth a lot more money today than Final Fantasy VIII. I'm not totally sure, but...
Yeah, I don't know. I would assume 8 sold quite a few copies.
Yeah, even though everyone seems to hate 8, that was actually my favorite of the Final Fantasy games when I was a teen. But, yeah. So...
You were frozen for a minute.
I was. That tends to happen. That's probably more my computer than the internet, because I'm just on the other side of a wall away from the Wi-Fi, so that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. I just wanted to let you know, because I wasn't quite sure. I think you were saying something about 8.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite when I was a teenager.
But a lot of people don't really like it that much. Yeah, you know, I think around 9, I remember playing 9, and I liked that was the one that returned to a lot, like the Black Mage and everything, right? And I liked it. Except that's the first time I really felt like I was just watching a movie where I had to push the A button a lot, or X or whatever. I felt like I was just watching. Okay, I can't imagine watching a movie, but every time you want to see the next part of the movie, you have to push a button. That's how it felt. And I was like, what are we doing here? And it kind of like burned me out on it. I never felt that so much before.
I played 9 when it first came out, but I never actually got to properly enjoy it. There was a guy I went to school with that also got it around the same time as me, and we got along, but we didn't. So he was talking about how far ahead he got, and I was like, no, you can't ruin this for me. So it became a competition of who could beat the game first.
Oh, right. Yeah. Just so you can't spoil.
Like the night I beat the game, he had gotten quite a bit behind me, and at one point he calls me and tells me where he's at, and I realized he's only like 10 minutes behind me in game time. So I hung up on him, and I just sit there and just plowed through to get to the final boss. I'm like, I've got to beat this before him. That's
interesting. I've never done that. I don't think I've ever raced through a game.
Yeah, and that's the kind of game it's not made to race through, especially 9, because it's such a slowed down game from 7 and 8.
Right.
Remember, I beat it, and I called him, and I said, how far are you? He's like, I'm on the final boss. And I was like, suck it, I just beat it, and hung up on him. The next day, I saw him at school. He's like, I hate you. Yeah, I kind of wish I hadn't done that now, because there's so much of it I don't remember, because I was just trying to beat the game.
Yeah. Hey, go back. Play it again.
I'm going to one of these days. I've got it for the Switch. I got it almost a year ago, and I just keep not getting around to it. That came out
on Switch?
Yeah, they re-released 7, 8, 9.
It's just the eShop?
Even 10, I think, yeah. They're all on just the online on the eShop.
Right on.
Because I played through 7.
Actually.
I played through 7 on that when I was waiting on the remake to come out last year.
You seem like an RPG guy.
Yeah, the first ones I played were actually, yeah, I think the first one I ever played a little bit of Chrono Trigger, which before we went on there, we talked a little bit about, but then I got into it for real later on. And then, sadly enough, and you'll be upset with me here, I think the first one I really played into was Shining Force for the Sega.
Why would I be sad about that? Because I have an NES Complex?
Exactly. I mean, I was already afraid if I'd wore his PlayStation shirt, he'd be like, we're not doing this.
No. Circle gets the square. Yeah, Genesis is awesome. Sega's awesome.
Yeah, I played it on Sega Channel, which was
wow.
probably the coolest thing I had as a kid, and I wish they'd bring something like that. I mean, they have things like it now. It just doesn't feel the same.
Well, with things like Game Pass, who cares?
Yeah, I don't have that. I've got the PS Now for the PlayStation 4, and that's pretty awesome. If people say, "Oh, I hate it," I'm like, I don't care what you hate. I like it. It's got games.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't have a lot of money.
That's like what we were talking about before. It's opinions. Can we just have opinions? Is that okay?
Of course not.
Yeah, you're allowed to like the things you like. No, you must like what I like. Yeah, we were saying that always blows my mind, like on a top 20 video or a top 10 video, and people comment that I'm wrong. Wait, what? My opinion's wrong? Like, yeah, this game that I like should be on there. And I'm like, well, I've never played that game. Too bad. That also must be your favorite game. I've never played it. Too bad. Yeah, something's fishy about that. So I always want to tell them, why don't you make a top 10 list? And I'm going to comment that you're insane because you have a different list than me. Doesn't work that way.
Hey, I've got one if you want to go put that comment on it.
Well, we're both insane. So there.
Hey, that's probably true. I mean, to get into doing the YouTube thing, you got to be a little nuts, I think.
Well, if people call me insane, I'll just type in random gibberish. I'll say something really psychotic and then prove their point. You're right. I am. I'm going to eat my hair. I can't do that. It's getting harder and harder with each passing year.
So when did you first decide to start like doing the whole YouTube thing?
The first thing I ever uploaded was a separate channel because I'm a teacher, and I was just tested it, you know, and that was like 2010 around that I uploaded, maybe 2009 even. It was very early. I just tested it and I uploaded something, which that it's funny. That's the only video I have on the other channel, and it's got like 150,000 views. It's like a 30-second clip about history, whatever. But that was just kind of a test. And that's when I discovered YouTube, and I started watching people like Pete Dorr. I don't know if you've heard of Pete Dorr. He was about that time in 2010, 2011, 2012. He had a channel, Pete's Game Room, just like his whole room was wall to wall, games, posters, plushies, everything. Even his ceiling was covered with gaming posters. And it was like phenomenal. At that point, I don't think many people had game rooms. Like, so I feel like he kind of put that on the map for a lot of people. This idea that you could devote an entire room to your hobby.
Yeah, I think just seeing if I'd came across a video of his at that point, just seeing a room, I'd been like, yeah, I want to see whatever he has to say now because look what he's got.
Right, and he was doing these like, you know, just top videos or collection videos. It wasn't so much. I think he did do some pickups type thing, but it was more like his collection. He'd have a big stack on his table. This is all my Nintendo 64 games. And he did a top 20. And so I like, well, I want to do something like that. But watching him, I felt like he seemed like a very normal, down-to-earth guy. And I'm thinking, if he could do it, I can do it. And then, of course, you know, who so many people watched was AVGN. And he added this bit of humor. And I thought that is something that, you know, people liked it. I just wanted more of it. And he had done one episode about Nintendo Power. Oh, and yeah. I thought, I love this episode, but I wish I could take that sensibility and do each issue. So I really studied that video in terms of pacing and editing. And like, I learned a lot about cuts, like having the music come in before you transition to the next shot of video, of B-roll. And I just kind of was figuring out a lot based on that video. So I started a series. And of course, I gave him credit because I want people to be like, you're just trying to rip him off. But like, let's face it, a lot of people were just, and still are, just trying to rip him off.
Oh, but guilty.
Yeah. It's so many people I know, their channel name even, they just changed the verb, they changed the adjective. It's still Angry Video Game Nerd, but it's just slightly different. A lot of early people from that time period had done that. So it was about 2012. And one funny thing, like I know Norm a little bit now, gaming historian, but when I first started, I typed in gaming historian, I wanted that to be a channel, my channel name, but it was taken. I had no idea. I mean, but that was way back. Like that would have been like 2011 that I did that. Because I had the channel before I ever uploaded for a little while too. But then I uploaded in 2012 for the first time.
He was one of the very first people I contacted when I was trying to see about doing interviews, and he, you know, politely declined, said he was busy. So I probably will end up harassing him again at some point because his is one of the ones, you know, I've started out, like you said, like watching James and the different comedy-based videos, and I saw his, I'm like, and it's just not, he's not going for comedy. He's just straight out, just here's education. And I just fell in love with it. And I was like, ooh. You don't have to try to be funny. You can just be yourself, because it felt very much like he was like just being him and just talking about it. And it was actually, I think, looking on some of his stuff, one of the sublinks was for one of your videos. And that's how I came across yours. That's when I came across the one with the cassette tapes.
Oh, yeah. Turning cassette tapes into like cases for Game Boy and
that was the first one I saw, and it just stuck with me. I was like, Ooh.
Yeah, I was doing an interview for something last night, actually, and they asked about the difference between a collector and a hoarder. And like, that's a really awesome question. But really, I think when it comes to collecting, like that tape case idea or these universal game cases behind me, I think the difference is collectors want to display and organize and like proudly show what they have. And so I've always been drawn to different ways of presenting. Like on the wall over here, I have some of like my favorite magazines, like some of the best looking covers. Again, I want to see the covers. Like I have so many others, like just all lined up. You can't see them, but we want to display stuff. And so that tape case idea, when I first saw that, I'm like, oh, I want to share this with people, because especially if you can get one of those little wall racks that holds like 100 or 50 or whatever.
Yeah.
It looks so rad. Those fit Genesis cartridges too, which is nice if you have loose games.
Yeah, a buddy of mine, he's got a rack like that with old cassettes, and a lot of his stuff is the, like, he would record it from a friend's cassette, and then he would make his own case and like had the insert where he would like you could tell he used markers or whatever to make his own variation of what the case was supposed to be for the V8 for the little cassette tape. And I'm like, so when I saw yours, I thought back to his collection of music, and I was like, those do look so cool.
They really do. Yeah, it's one of the best ways, I think, to display Game Boy.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, that was the first one I saw, and then it led to me looking at some of the other videos, like a lot of the reviews, the lists. The one about, I think it was Super Nintendo games, was one of the first gaming ones I watched. And
that was a long time ago.
I said, I'll admit, like we talked before about, everyone has their own opinion. When you got to the end and the last one was Metroid, I was like, it should have been Mega Man X. Then I was like, that's just his opinion.
4.
Yeah, I was like,
4.
That's why I thought, I'm like, that's probably my number one, which again made me think, looking at those kind of things, when I started thinking about my own channel, I'm like, well, it was 4 on his, but 1 on mine, so I wouldn't have to worry about, if I make a video, it's not going to be the exact same content, because if I agreed with your list, why would I make my own? Because it'd be like, what's your list? His list. And
yeah, that video again
would make it easy for me. I could be like, just go watch his. That's my list.
The two things I hear about that video all the time is I don't blink. And it's true.
I'll have to watch it again now.
No, it's true. But what happened is, like, I had each game like about a 30-second to a minute chunk of like script, and I don't have a teleprompter. I definitely didn't have anything like that back then, or any way to cut. So I tried to remember it, and I tried to do the whole thing in one take. So I just would like kind of stare into the camera and just talk and not blink. And then I do the next take. So I didn't realize that was happening, but yeah, sure enough, there's not a lot of blinking. And the other thing is, I was copying, like, from game to game. I have like a little box off to the side that has the box art and the release date and stuff. So when I would get to the next game, I would just copy and paste that information, and then I'd change it. But one of them I forgot to change, and that's Chrono Trigger. And so still I get people saying, Konami did not do Chrono Trigger. You're an idiot. Like, yeah, no freaking duh.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that.
I defer to my Chrono Trigger retrospective, where I clearly know that it was not Konami. It's just copying and pasting. So no mistakes. If you make a mistake, you will never live it down, ever.
I've had several of those. One of the last videos I did, I made a joke on about making lists, and one of the guys I've been watching for 3 or 4 years now, I think, that I've really liked was Rob Pearson from PlayStation Access. He does like a Friday feature. It's a list of some sort of list every Friday on their channel. And so I made a joke. I'm like, well, see, I am now the master of list making. Out of my way, Rob. I'm not bald like you are. And immediately after that, on the video, and I didn't catch it till like a day after I uploaded it, the music swells. And you can't hear hardly anything I'm saying for like the next 20 seconds. It's just the music is over me. I'm like, I think he somehow got his revenge.
Interesting.
I knew it was messed up, but I'd already had the video up for a few days, and I didn't save for some reason, you try to save the final project. I didn't. I just rendered it. So since there was no going back, I shared it on Twitter and tagged him and was like, "You win this round, Rob." He's probably going, "I don't know who that is. Just keep on going." But still, I was like, you got to have fun with it.
Yeah.
Especially when you do mess up, because like you said, you don't live it down. So all you can do is own it.
Yep.
That is one thing I've noticed with a lot of there's probably some of your older videos like that too, is it does look like you're looking directly at me when I'm watching. I'm like, he's staring at me.
Oh, I've heard that too. You're staring into my soul. I think these eyes too, like I had someone the other day say, are those real or they got to be contacts? What are you talking about? Yeah, they're real. And I'm watching you.
You should be like,
I see the dark things in your soul.
If someone asks you that, you'd be like, they're both glass. I can't see. Oh my God, I can't see.
Whoa.
Start reaching around.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, like it. Well, you mentioned you're a teacher, so when you're not making the games, what do you do for the living there? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, this whole teaching thing, I really think that has a lot to do though with the channel. Actually, just today, my assistant principal found out I had a YouTube channel. I never talk about this at work. And she's like, "Wait, really? What do you have?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm hoping to have it grow a little bit." Like I said, right now I have 57, and she's like, "Oh," and she didn't realize 1,000. Like she's like, "What? 57,000?" Yeah, but as a teacher, I studied history, and when you study history, you learn about analyzing sources and research. You learn about what sources are reliable, which ones are not, what's valid, what isn't, and so when I do research, I'm looking at all these articles and interviews, and I have to double check things. I don't want to put something in the video unless I know for sure it's real. And there have been times when I was convinced something was real. And then I read one more thing after recording the script, recording it all, and I was editing, and I'm like, uh-oh, I think that might be wrong. And so I do deeper research and re-record that part. But so being a historian, you learn all those sort of history and research skills. And then because I'm a teacher, I've spent the past 18 years trying to make 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds laugh, trying to be random and weird and deliver things in not so monotone a way. And I think that those two things really do help come together. Like, and also in my class, I do lessons I present on PowerPoint where I've done animation and graphic design. I want every slide to look really cool. All that stuff, I just did it to be a better teacher. But I feel like a lot of those things bleed over into YouTube. And even like most of my still images or slide type things, I actually design on PowerPoint. My thumbnails are done on PowerPoint, which is funny. Like they use Adobe or whatever, but I always use PowerPoint because I'm so like familiar with the inside and outside of that program. And so, yeah, definitely the teaching aspect I think affects the delivery and the script writing, and then the research part. It all comes together. But yeah, hope that answers your question.
Yeah. How long have you been teaching for?
18 years.
Oh, nice.
I know I look like I'm only 20. This gray hair is just an illusion. It's the lighting.
So long enough
18
now.
18 years.
That's more than a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it really doesn't surprise me. Like when you told me that actually, I know you mentioned some of the videos, but when you actually like said, "Yeah, I do this," it was one of those things. I'm like, I'm not surprised at all, really. Especially looking back at videos, I'm like, I can see that, because a lot of people get. Oh, what brain did there. A lot of people, will get nervous when they're talking, especially even people who've been doing YouTube for years. You can tell sometimes they get nervous about stuff, but I'm like, if you sit in front of kids and talk to them, after doing that, YouTube's easy.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, putting yourself out there, like for everyone who's ever tried or started something like that, you do get nervous, and you do you worry about stumbling over your words if people are going to think you're I don't know, an amateur, you don't know what you're doing. But I think the best thing is you just get out there and you do it, and then you can always hide videos later. There's some early videos that I definitely hid. And the more you watch yourself, though, like you make refinements. I think it's important that you watch your own videos later, even. Go watch what you did, and so you don't do that anymore.
Yeah. I've never made one that when I look back through it, I go, yeah, I'm happy with everything in it. Usually there's like, I hate most of it, but I like that one little part. So I know to keep that and everything else changes.
And you build on that. You just keep doing more of that more often. You eventually will definitely, like anyone who does this, you get into a routine of what you like and what seems to people respond to. You just got to run with it.
Yeah. Are there, like, aside from obvious, like, we mentioned James and then gaming historian channels and stuff, are there ones that, like, when you're getting ready to put stuff together and stuff, are there people that you watch, like, to get ideas from or influences from, or is it just doing your own thing?
Honestly, I don't watch much YouTube. I really don't. And I always feel bad about that. Like, even my close friends, like Pixel Game Squad, I'm like, yeah, sorry, man. I feel bad. Like, I always tell him that because he's so awesome about watching my stuff, or Generation Gap Gaming. I'm not sure if you know him.
Yeah, I've seen his stuff. I haven't talked to him yet, but
I think he lives somewhat near you, out in that area at least. But yeah, so I try to watch people's video, but some people put out a lot all the time, and it's really hard to get to every video. Yeah, when it comes to YouTube, I'm usually watching, weird stuff like people in other countries trying food from America for the first time, or mouse traps. I don't know why. They're just quick and brainless, and I don't have to think. But yeah, when I'm approaching writing a video, it's like I said, history, man. I go straight to primary sources. I search interviews. I search any article. The older, the better. Like in history, you want to look for primary sources.
Yeah.
Words from their mouths, not someone interpreting what they said. That's not good enough. That's a secondary source. You want to find them talking. And so you read as many of those things, and I just start making a list of the interesting points. At that point, there's no order. It's just list. And so I'll get this list with maybe 100, maybe 150 points. And I'm like, all right, here I am. I've read 30 articles with a bunch of interviews mixed in. And sometimes you go down a rabbit hole. They say a little comment and you got to like dig deeper.
Yeah.
And read more and put it all together. And so you get this massive list, and then I got to organize it in some way, put it into categories and try to like link it together and weave it into something that makes sense. And I try to eliminate as much fluff as I can, because I like things to be tight, to the point, brief and lucid and clear, but so all that stuff, that's the perfectionist and the historian in me. It's a monumental task. And that's why people are like, yeah, we like your videos, but you only upload like one every year. And like, well, no, not quite that bad. But if you understood that I research for about 100 hours before I even start the script, it takes time. I don't want to be wrong. And I want to make sure that when people watch that they know what they're getting. I actually have a sign. I don't know. I don't share this too often, but I have a sign in my room here that says, "Be so good they can't ignore you." And I don't know if I'm achieving that, but you got to have a goal, right? So my thought is, I want the research to be so good. I want the script to be the best it can be. I want the editing to be the best, and the camera work and the lighting, and there's all these different components. I want them to be so good that when people watch it, they can't ignore. Like, okay, I might not like everything this guy does, but I can tell he's got some talent, At least that's what I'm aiming for. And I think that's a good approach for anything in life, right?
Yeah, one of the things that always stuck out to me when I was watching your videos, like, so I started watching probably good several number of years back now, but like I started really watching them just in the past 2-3 years, because I started watching a lot more YouTube, because as I started growing an interest in this, and also with having an 11-year-old, he watches things, he's wanting to do his own YouTube.
Yeah.
And that kind of led to me starting my own, because I was like, well, what if I start one now, because I'm not letting him do it till he's older. I can kind of learn how it works, learn what's good, what's toxic, and then when he goes to do it, I can help him because now I've done it. Yeah. And the pandemic was a perfect excuse because more free time. But
yeah,
it was like, well, let's do this. But I look for anyone that when they're doing stuff, it just comes off as genuine, as honest. They're not trying to, even not necessarily it's a bad thing, like put on an act. Like, obviously James Rolfe is not the nerd, but you can tell that he likes what he's doing. He cares about what he's doing. Of course, people now always want to criticize anything he does, but he's famous, he's popular, that happens. But like a lot of years, like I remember some of them where you pretty much outright said from the get-go, this isn't going to be an unbiased reporting on this one. This is a game that I take. This game has I have a connection to it. This is coming from that perspective, and you just put it right there to begin with. I was like, okay, now I know exactly what I'm into before you even start, because you pretty much tell me, look, I love this game.
Yeah, Super Metroid comes to mind. This is not a review. It's a gush fest.
I think you've done that on a few other ones too. That was one of the ones that stood out.
Yeah, that video, like, that was the first one, because I was doing smaller things like Nintendo Power Time Machine and Is It Fun? These little videos. But Super Metroid being my favorite game, I said, you know what? If I'm going to do a video on this, I'm going to do something epic. And that script, I worked on it for 2.5 years. Like, it was in the background, constantly being tweaked and added to. And now, I mean, it's kind of actually a short video compared to stuff I'm doing now. But, and like, I remember I captured the entire gameplay, and then I realized that it was out of sync in a way. Like, the audio was all off. So I had to do it again. But that gave me more time to refine the script. But I wanted to put everything into that video. And I tried to brainstorm all these different ways of doing shots and telling the story. And that's the first retrospective I did. If I did it now, I think it would be probably twice as long with a lot more interesting factoids. But at the time, I was trying to do something that no one else was really doing to that degree. I mean, that came out like 2013.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of like in-depth retrospective type reviews. I'm always trying to push something if I can, like trying to push beyond what it seems like people are doing. Now, again, I don't know if I'm actually succeeding, but that's always the goal, right?
From what I've seen, I think you are.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, because it is my intention to always push the boundaries. But yeah, that one felt like I changed. I felt like I kind of grew up once that one came out. But I definitely remember that line. And so because that one did well, and I felt like this is like a template, I want to kind of use that. So the next one I did was Zelda, which was like 5 years later that I did the next retrospective. I took a long break with some personal things in life, but I came back and I was like, if I'm going to come back, it's going to be Zelda, and it's going to be another one of these. But I sort of took that script as a framework. And so I said, this is like video is going to drip with glowing praise, I think is the phrase I use. So instead of saying gush fest, it drips with glowing praise. I don't know what I'll say next time, but it's probably going to be disgusting.
just picking next time, do one on a game that you hate, and you can be like, I'm just going to take a dump on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Less gushing and dripping and more dumping. Yeah, I get it. Good idea.
Like a retrospective,
that's a great idea.
Of the worst games.
An anti-retrospective. A review.
Well, if I ever see you doing one on Sega or something that's not Nintendo, we'll know why.
Oh, God. I don't hate Sega.
I know. I just got to bring that up because I'm sure you probably get that in comments too from people. You don't?
Not really.
Because I know that's like for me growing up, there was the whole, what's better, Sega or Nintendo? And I was in the middle. I liked both. I had both.
Yeah. Well,
but I knew people that wanted you to pick.
Well, that's the question. I see this a lot with my students, right? That I remember being a kid and definitely being a fanboy. You have your system and you don't like the other one. But I think it really comes down to you're trying to validate the fact that that's the one you got. You got to say it's the best one, because you don't want to tell yourself you got the worst one. So we build a case in our mind. We got the best one. But now that we're older, we have both. Many people have both. Went back and got whatever one you didn't have. And you realize, you know what? That was pretty good. They're both pretty good. But it came down to the fact that we couldn't afford both. That's really the bottom line.
Pretty much,
if I could have had both growing up, I would have absolutely been like, you're right, Genesis is awesome. I agree.
I mean, and I will say in our house, we had the Super Nintendo first. And it was after I think one of my parents' friends had a Genesis and they had Sega Channel. The adults had Sega Channel. My parents saw it, loved it, and they bought the Genesis and bought Sega Channel. So we went from having just the one to my parents decided they wanted that, and we suddenly had both.
Yep.
And I have a brother that's about 2.5 years younger than me. So he and I were like, this is just the best thing.
I never experienced Sega Channel.
It was a lot like the Game Pass and stuff, but with a lot more waiting. But it had sections on there where you could like see where people would submit fan art and stuff. They would have like an area where you could look at fan art and stuff on it. It was pretty cool. And
that
like people would write letters.
Concept.
And they tried to make it as interactive as they could. It was almost like a magazine in some aspects, but then there's all these games you can play.
Yeah.
I really wish there was something that they would bring something to that model back, but it was a product of its day. That's for sure. Like I said, I know obviously I'd say Super Metroid is probably still your number one, isn't it? Has anything ever came along to top it, or?
When it comes to favorites, like it probably is my favorite, but you know how it goes. You kind of fall in love with things, and you kind of I haven't played Super Metroid in a long time. I've been more on a OG Legend of Zelda kick. Like I was trying to get fast at it, and I was able to beat it in under 50 minutes. Like I was at a point one day, I play it 3 times a day. Yeah, I was just trying to get faster and faster. I know you can get way faster than that, but experimenting with the different glitches and you can, once you learn the ins and outs of something and sort of the backstory and the history and what went into it, you start appreciating details a whole lot more. So I feel like my favorite game is usually the one I'm working on. So if when I did Chrono Trigger, I was like, this game is the best game I've ever played. I can't believe this. Like the level of detail, the mastery that went into every component of the game. You feel like that's your favorite, and then I'm doing Mega Man X. I'm like, no, look at that. This is unreal. And I just stare at the slow motion of him like dashing. I'm like, what this is beautiful. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this past year I decided I was gonna I just haven't had as much time as I did last year. I haven't done an actual review so far in 2021. My videos have either been interviews or they've been the list videos. And I thought, well, I'll do lists, that way it's something else along that same vein, but it'll be a lot easier to put together, of course, because it's just a list, it's just my opinion. And then I thought, well, I'll do my top 10 favorite games, and I've not made it yet because I can't come up with the list. I'm like, even with 10, I just can't do it. I'm like,
it's hard to even figure it out. Yeah, I did kind of the old school, almost like what you'd see in some of those old gaming magazines. I kind of gave it different rankings in different categories, and mostly the basic fun category, but replayability and things like that. Graphics have never honestly mattered that much to me. They give it, I feel like graphics just give it a little bit of a nudge. What matters is, does it all come together to me?
Exactly. Well, there's a reason that people still are going back to the original NES. A lot of times, even today, that's where they're looking at. That's good game design right there.
It is.
Legend of Zelda is dropped as one of the greatest. If you want to know how to make a good game, look at this, because it doesn't hold your hand, but you can figure it out.
Yeah, I find it. That's one of those things that I love about vintage gaming, is that you're looking at the precursors. Like you see games now, but we who've experienced all of the transitions and slow morphing into what it is now, we can see back the roots. Like the Legend of Zelda, it's like Fallout or Skyrim. It's that's Skyrim of its day. And if it wasn't for something like Legend of Zelda, would there be a Skyrim? Something had to do it first. And I mean, there were things before Zelda, like Adventure on Atari, but Zelda really, like, proof of concept, this can work and be awesome. And it just has morphed. Or obviously Mario Brothers. You mean running one direction, avoiding things? This could be every single game for the next decade. Yeah, pretty much.
It still goes on.
Oh, it still does. Yeah, absolutely. But there was a time when it's like every game felt like a side scroller. Every single one.
I'm so happy to see the resurgence of the side scroller, though, because when those went away, I think gaming lost something for a number of years.
Well, all the experiment into 3D, there were some growing pains, for sure.
I never had a N64 growing up, but I had friends that had one, and so even though I had a bigger collection of games and I had access to the Final Fantasies, the Metal Gear Solid, and everything, going to their house and seeing them play something like Ocarina of Time or just Super Mario 3D, I'm just like, But I want that. Even though I've got all these awesome games, those just looked fun. Now, I've argued for a couple of years now that I said, you know, there's the other consoles. To me, it's like PlayStation, Sony, and Microsoft. You know, they're in the gaming business. Nintendo's in the Nintendo business in a lot of ways, because it seems almost like for the most part they just do what they do and they do it well, and
they don't really seem to care what the others are doing. That Nintendo always innovates, and they are not like, they don't care that online had been so successful. They're like, it doesn't matter, we're Nintendo, we do what we want.
Yeah.
And they'd say, yeah, we're gonna have a motion controller, and then of course everyone copies them. But like, we're just gonna, you know what, we don't care, we're just gonna make it portable and dockable. That's just what we're gonna do. We don't care that the technology is behind in many ways. People will like it, and they do.
Yeah, my Switch gets more use than my PS4 does. For me.
Same. And I can imagine, like Switch, it looks like may end up being their most successful console ever.
And who would have thought that after the Wii? Because
Wii U was such a dismal failure. Like when I used to do a podcast, my friend said, my co-host said, this is over. This is the end of Nintendo. He's like, they can't bounce back from this. They're done.
I heard that.
Boy, was he wrong.
I heard that during the GameCube too, though.
Yep. Yeah, you can't ever count Nintendo out. They invest in the future. They have such a long-term goal. I mean, that company is so old. Like way back to playing cards and, you know, Hanafuda. They are so old. They are playing a long-term game. And they've got a lot of resources stacked up in the background.
They've got just like a dream team there too. It seems like every time they crank something out, it's just amazing. Like, how many times can you remake Mario and it not just be boring? I mean,
I was actually getting worried.
Nothing has legs like that.
I was getting worried for a while. I'm not particularly a fan of new Super Mario Brothers or new Super Mario Brothers Wii U or whatever. There's just something, it was almost starting to feel very trite to me. And I was starting to worry, like, what else can they do? But I feel like with Odyssey and Breath of the Wild on Switch, they brought it back to some simplicity, redefined some concepts that didn't matter anymore. Like, you know, lives, for example, in Odyssey, stuff doesn't matter. And I think that it felt like a return to simplicity. And, you know, there's all that talk with Breath of the Wild that when they designed it, they actually used the original Legend of Zelda as the backbone. Like, and it shows. Like, I wish they would do that with all of those franchises. What was it about Metroid? Go back to original Metroid, maybe Super Metroid. Go back to original Metroid and say, what really worked? What do people really like? Let's remove the modern fluff and boil it down to the most fun, basic principles. Like, I'd love to see them just reinvent everything. I was really hoping that would happen with Pokemon. Like that when they did Pokemon, that it would be the true thing that everyone has imagined. Now, I haven't admittedly played it, but from everything I've watched, it doesn't quite feel there. It's good from everything I've seen. Have you played it?
I haven't. I would never really was that big into Pokemon. However, I will say that I absolutely cannot deny that right here is Pokemon Go. And it's like, you can't get away from it. I always thought it was dumb. And I was sitting around one day and I was like, free app, download it. Oh, now I'm walking. Now I'm doing this. Okay. And there's almost no gaming, phenomenon. But it worked. That's the thing. I checked it out because I thought it was stupid. I'm like, I got to see how stupid this is. And I've still got it on there and I still play it. So,
yep.
I guess it's not that stupid after all.
No. Wow.
It's funny. Everyone I've interviewed, when we talk about like what goes into making a video, to get 10 minutes of video sometimes is just, I thought it would be a lot easier getting into it than it is. It's not that it's not enjoyable because I love making them, but man, there's so much work. And it sounds like, especially on like your stuff with all the research you're putting into it.
It really just depends on your scope. You know, what's your purpose? you could make a video where, you know, I think the easiest way is if you had 2 cameras and then you just talk, and then you can switch between angles to hide any cuts.
Yeah.
So you don't have like these awkward jump cuts where you suddenly over here or whatever. But by just having 2 cameras and just talk, and then you can splice it all together and edit it down, and then put some voiceover, I mean, not voiceover, but some B-roll footage on top of that. That I think is the most straightforward, easiest way. But again, it just depends on what you're trying to do. If you're just reporting on stuff or giving your opinions about things, that's a simple way to do a video. If you're trying to like point out details about something though, like often I'm trying to do, you can't just do that. You have to show it.
Yeah, there's
and you
stuff
want
I've
to
seen
show
on
it in a
yours.
compelling way.
There's stuff I've seen some of yours. I played that game and I didn't know that. A lot of that happens. I'm like, I love when that happens because then it makes me want to go back and play it again.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. I want to rekindle a love for a game. Like I want people to watch it and get that exact. That's great to hear you say that because that's really what I'm striving for. And I'm often, you know, as much as I've read or researched over the years, I always find new stuff. You know, I just did that video. It's like this new series, Declassified, about Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
And I can't believe how much stuff I didn't know. You think you know everything. And I'd watched stuff over the years about it. I've read stuff, but still, I had no idea that Koopa came from a Korean dish. No idea. And I actually thought that it was from the Japanese myth of the Kappa that it came from because there's so many similarities, but it turns out it's not at all. It's got to be some sort of subconscious connection. But then I bounced these ideas off some of my other friends who know a lot, and they're like, I never knew that either. I never knew that. Wow. So when you have a group of like 4 or 5 guys that have been diehard game fans their entire life who do this kind of reading and research, and you're able to tell them something they don't know, then you feel like, okay, maybe I'm onto something here. Like I have to point that out.
So if you got, that's when you know something good's happening out of this. Something's going to come out of it.
Yeah, I think so. And that one has shocked me. I was afraid that doing Mario Brothers would be such a trite, overused game that people would be like, I don't want to watch Mario Brothers. But I felt like that had to be the place to start, and it's shocked me. It's been one of the best videos I've done, very quickly rising. But that's not the point. I mean, I always just want to. My tagline is kind of like, you know, entertainment, nostalgia, information, and fun. And I try to get those ideas into all the videos. And as long as people enjoy it, that's the point.
Oh, exactly.
As long as I enjoy it.
Like I looked at the principle when I first started doing it myself. I was like, you got to do something you enjoy. If you don't enjoy it, then the channel will fail no matter how good you do.
That's true.
And if you love what you're doing, then even if no one else is really watching hardly at all, 1 or 2 people watch it and they enjoy it, it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most of mine are still, you know, the channel's still very, very small, but I'm not worried about that because I love what I'm doing, and if it grows, it's great.
You know, it's funny, like people, I think, assume that if their channel grows, that they're like, all right, I'm good. I made it. But, you know, I know people that have 1 million subs, and I talk to them and they're like, I don't understand it. I put this video out and it only got 100,000 views. I'm like, wow. You know, you talk to some people that,
I'll take some of those.
Only 100,000? Yeah, only 100,000? Yeah, that's a dud for them. Because that means only 1 out of 10 subscribers watched it. Yeah. And I get that. You know, if you had 100 subs and you get 10 views, you'd be like, wow, no one watched it.
Yeah, I know when I was first researching to like start doing the channel, I saw all the things about, you know, you need to post every day or however many times a week. And I'm just like, yeah, that's never going to happen. I was like, I don't have the time for that. And in order to do that, the content would be so terrible that it wouldn't be worth it.
But again, I think that's that issue of scope. Like, what is the scope? I don't upload that often, maybe 5 videos a year. I really want to get that up there. But if I'm trying to make something, I'm trying to make videos that you could watch 10 years from now and you wouldn't even know that it was 2020 when it came out or 2021. So I very intentionally, I never say it came out 35 years ago or whatever. I did put it on a thumbnail because I could change that. Yeah. But in the script, I say, as the decades have passed, like that could be 100 years from now. Well, then I'd have to say century, but I don't think I'm going to care at that point. But still, you know, I try to make it timeless and that's the scope I'm aiming for. But, some channels, like, more power to them. They have that success with just covering the news. They just talk about what's happening. The video about the news in April of 2021, people probably won't care that much in a year about that particular video, but that's the scope they're aiming for. Yeah, even a few days later, I don't really care, but that's fine. That's the scope they're aiming for. So I think, like what you said, finding the things you enjoy, but also really giving yourself a sense of what is the scope here. Am I trying to do something that's timeless? Am I trying to do something that's very pertinent right now?
I think I tried a few different things. One of the first things I did was where I play guitar. I made like and I do it at church and stuff. I made like a how-to video for a simple worship song. It's like a 3-chord song, and I showed how to play it and everything. And I put it up, and I thought about making another one. And I went, it was fun when I made it, but I didn't ever want to make another. Right. I was like, I could make thousands of these right now, and I could crank them out quick because I know the content. Obviously, I can play it, so it's not hard to say, this is what I'm doing.
Well, there's some Final Fantasy for you.
I got a text.
From...
No, I didn't. No notification.
Possessed?
Yeah. It does that sometimes. I don't get it. It actually, I think it's also linked to, like, when I get messages on Twitter, it does that.
Oh, that might be.
But I didn't have one on there. Like, they were going back and forth. They kept going off. My wife's like, what is that? I said, I'm winning. I'm like, yay, I won something. You got a message. But yeah, after that, I actually made a video about a pro wrestler, about Chris Jericho, because I'm like, well, again, one of my favorite subjects in school was history, actually, because I liked learning about what happened, why it happened, the details. So documentaries growing up, always my favorite thing to do is watch documentaries, even though a lot of them are skewed. There's always still something to pull away from them.
Yep.
And so I did one on him, thinking, well, I love that stuff, but making it just wasn't what I wanted to do. I said, like, your stuff is, again, we're doing gaming videos, but what I'm doing I'm not doing what you're doing by any stretch. Mine's a lot of the comedy base, but still I try to put a lot of work into it, make sure if I'm going to do something that's right. But that's what I love is, you look up gaming videos and you think, well, there's one kind. No, there's not. There's so many different kinds of videos out there for it. Like, you can't really compare gaming historian to angry video game nerd.
No. But
at the same time, if you like gaming, you could watch both and draw a lot of great from it. Like you said, that's where you got yours. I got mine that way. And you're still going to learn stuff.
Right.
So one of my favorites I watch is Cat Icarus. I don't know if you've seen any of his work.
I have seen some, I think.
Yeah, I can really relate to him right now because he just had 2 computers that have basically died on him. And I'm like, mine's dying too. This is terrible. But, the idea of being on a mixed comedy is kind of what I went for. But a lot of times, like I said, when I'm looking for ideas, I'll just go through and start watching videos to see what other people have done, see what I like, and get an idea for this or that. Like the lists, I think the gaming lists ideas I did were actually, like I said, seeing some of your lists is what got me thinking I could do some of those because I have a different list than he does. Yeah. Therefore, it's something different to offer.
Yeah, and I definitely do that. I have done that. Like before I ever did a list, I was curious how people presented lists. And I did watch, but it wasn't even necessarily gaming lists. I just wanted to see, like, how do people introduce each one? Or I do research like that. So I definitely relate to that. But yeah, actually, I don't know what I was going to say. Lost my train of thought. I had something. Oh, the door is magically opening behind you.
Oh, a cat just walked in the room.
And shut the door?
I think so.
The cat opened and shut the door? This
is a new place. It might be haunted. Wow. This place might be haunted. I might not make it through the night.
Is the cat still there, or was it a glitch in the Matrix?
Yeah, she's still here, aren't you? Yeah, you're shouting at me, aren't you?
That is a beautiful cat. Oh my goodness.
And she's got a mohawk.
I am seriously allergic to cats, but I might even pet the cat and then wash my hands, because that is one of the best looking cats I've ever seen, man.
I could make it better. She just had kittens that
Oh no.
Have the same pattern.
Oh my goodness. Send me one in the mail. Please don't do that. That would be very bad.
I can imagine that. Oh, great. We'll make headlines now. Pete is going to be after us.
Yeah, I'll do it on an unboxing video. Oh.
What's this?
Why did he send that? He is unhinged.
And we can watch your face break out in real time.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
That's a new video project. It'd be easy to accomplish if we weren't like on opposite ends of the country.
What are your thoughts on the whole graded games thing? We kind of were briefly talking about that.
Like I said, there's part of me, yeah, I've always looked at the idea of games or toys or anything like that. When you buy it and you don't open it, it's like, well, why? But again, like, with emulation and stuff, it's easy to understand why you want to keep things, especially now. Like, I've been looking at, like, wanting to build a toy collection for my kids of some of the ones I had as a kid, and you can't find them anymore. And the same way with games, they're getting hard to find. So I think if you got something in good shape, keep it in good shape.
Yeah. It's such a contentious issue right now because on the one hand, like I think as a historian, I like the idea of preserving the past. I like the idea that somewhere out there, people are taking a game and they're locking it in this watertight, ballistic, it cannot be destroyed almost. That I like that idea. But the game, like the purist in me, does think, well, these are meant to be played, but more importantly, they're meant to be accessible. Like it's frustrating that games that I used to be able to buy for $100, boxed complete games, man, you're lucky to find one for $400, $500. Yeah. And that's like where the back's all ripped up and you can't. And that whole thing about grading, I mean, basically the way I look at it is the bigger the pool of people gets, then you start getting like there's a curve of distribution and you start getting these extremes. So gaming has become so popular that the wealthiest extreme is aware. They don't care about games. They care about investment. Yeah. And so they're looking at it and they're like, well, you know what? I don't care about Mario Brothers, but I'm going to buy this thing and I'm going to grade it. And I'm going to try to pump that market by selling it for a lot. And maybe they're even, I don't know. But I wonder if there might even be a little bit of like pushing the boundaries and trying to increase the prices just to give people this sense that they're a better investment. But yeah. So what I've seen in recent times, especially with something like I don't know if you heard, but recently there was a Super Mario Brothers with a hang tab, and I think it sold for $650,000. Graded. Yeah. So what do you think that did? It made a lot of regular people like, well, I've got a Super Mario Brothers with a hang tab. I think I'll send it off and get it graded. And then they think they're going to flip it. Now, they probably will be able to flip it for more now. But the other thing that happened is good luck finding now. Like I just bought about a year and a half ago, I bought Super Mario Brothers complete hang tab for under $100.
Oh, wow.
I think it was closer to $60. I can't remember the exact price I paid. I bought it when I was doing the Super Mario World retrospective. I'm like, I want to have a boxed copy. Well, right now, if I were to do that, it would be I couldn't do it. I wouldn't invest that much what they're going for now. I mean, you're lucky to find one that's smashed up for $200. And I just was looking today out of curiosity, and they're regularly selling $300, $400. And the reason is because so many people think, well, I'll buy it for $400, but I'll get it graded and it's going to sell for more than that. And so it's causing this inflation of prices where it's now pricing out the lower end of that distribution, where the average person who's like, you know what, my favorite game of all time was, Super Metroid. So I want to get that one. I just want to get a boxed copy of that. Okay, $350. Yeah, well, so I have to save for a few months or, sell my kid. Like, I don't know. How am I going to get that? Like it becomes harder and harder for the average collector. And that part of it is frustrating, and I don't want to say it makes me mad, but it is frustrating. Yeah, it's late over there, right?
Still 10 o'clock.
You're yawning.
I've been
grading games.
I've been up since dawn. It's not actually, like I said, I totally get that. I think that the idea that people would charge, people that, especially I get mad when people that aren't into it get involved in it, because again, like you said, that it messes with prices. It makes it so that anyone that collects because they love it, it's hard to get into because these people screw it up.
They do.
So when you say that about, don't want to say it makes you angry, I understand being angry about it, because again,
well, but on the other hand, like imagine you went into a Goodwill or something, and for whatever reason there was a sealed copy of Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
You're going to keep that? Are you going to complain that you could sell that for $400? Are you going to complain that you could go get that graded and maybe sell it to enough to buy a home on the beach? Are you going to complain about that?
Oh, no, or would you do it? It's definitely a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it is. Like, you can be mad about it, but I would do it.
You can be mad about it until it benefits you.
I know. It's like, I don't like it. But, I actually know somebody who found a sealed copy of Super Mario World, which is not often found because, that was a pack-in game. And he sold it for a lot, but he didn't grade it. And I was just asking him recently, like, well, what if you'd graded that? You could have graded that thing and sold it and probably been like in really good shape for the next decade. Like, nothing to worry about. Like, with that kind of money, if you can't pay off a house, you could put on a really fat down payment or knock down your principal really low and really change your life. So it's a really tough question. I don't like that it's pricing regular people out, but I can't blame somebody. But what I don't like is what you were kind of alluding to. I don't like the fact that these are people who don't even give a crap about video games. All they care about is this is an investment.
I've been thinking for years that there really needs to be, like a Smithsonian for gaming. It's just, here it is, a collection. It's all here.
And what's crazy is if there was a Smithsonian, this is the preservationist and the history guy in me. When I go to a museum, everything's behind glass. You could look at this thing that was in Egypt and you're like, that's a game that they had in Egypt, what was it? Senate, I think is the name of it. That's meant to be played. No, it's not. No, it's meant to stay right there so that it never gets damaged, so that people 1,000 years from now can still see what that game was like. There's these sealed games and people like they're meant to be played. Well, go buy a loose copy, because don't take off the wrapping. Once you open it, you can't reseal it, really, not legally, not like, well, it's legal, but not like morally, ethically. You can't undo that. I like the idea that some of these games are permanently, like 100 years from now, those copies that are sealed like that, unless they're destroyed in a fire or something, people are still going to be able to say that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
Our great-great-grandchildren will say that's what it looked like. And there probably will be a museum.
All the things like that there's so many people that get into it for the money. I never have with any hobbies of mine. If I dump a lot of money into it, I don't look to get it back. Like I said, I've got boxes on boxes of Magic the Gathering cards. I remember one day I was at a comic shop playing, and I bought a bunch of cards there and just built a deck on the spot, and I put it together and I found a card. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Just threw it in there. One of the guys, I'm playing against him, I laid the card down. It was just a land, and he looks at it and goes, he looks at it and his eyes start bulging. I'm like,
is that a fetch?
This has been probably 6-7 years ago now. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was like one of the little special lands that came out with that one, and it was just the way that was made, I guess. And he's like, I'll give you $50 for it right now. Okay. And he like handed me just a regular land, and I handed it to him, and someone else was like, dude, that was like a $500 card. Yeah, whatever. I made $50 on it. Yeah, I never gave it another thought. I wasn't mad. I was like, man, I guess he got me then. I didn't know. And if you hadn't told me that, I'd have never been the wiser. He just paid for my game night. And that's how I looked at it. And I was like, more power to him. But He got money and I got a free game night. I won.
You have a different constitution than me.
Like I said, I was just there playing with it. And that was the thing. He was panicked that I was playing with it because he's like, the more you touch it and do anything with it, he's like, so he even like wouldn't let me slide it back to him. He wanted to reach down and pick it up carefully, and I'm just like, it's a card, dude. It's meant to be played with. So, like I said, there is both schools of mentality on that. And it was just, I can see both sides.
At the end of the day, it's like, what are you going to really do about it? Like, I understand an investor wanting to see if they can grow, make more money on this. I understand it. And I can't say that if I found something that was an insanely good deal, that I might not end up selling it, especially if I already have it, right?
Yeah.
I can't say I wouldn't. But I feel like at the end of the day, you can collect however you want. Like, I don't think we should, just like we were saying about videos, when people tell you your opinion is wrong. Like, if I want to collect complete in box, okay. If I want to collect loose, okay. Don't criticize me and say I'm not truly collecting unless it's complete. Like, let people collect how they want to collect. If they want to grade their games, let them do it.
Yeah.
If they want to make money by grading them, I don't want to say that they're evil. And it seems like this topic is so hot. There are some people that, like, it is anathema if you grade. And other people like, no, I think we need to preserve them. So what? No, it's not just meant to be opened. That is a sealed Legend of Zelda. Don't you dare open that. What are you doing?
But at the same time, like I said, it's, when we were kids and we got our copy of it, you rip that box open, you pull it out, and if the box is torn, who cares? It's just a box.
Yep.
Now we look back at those boxes.
I was never like that.
Well,
I didn't rip them open, but
I remember I think it was Super Mario All-Stars. We got it, and like it had a piece of tape over the thing. I just went, rip, don't care, opening it. I got to play this now.
Yep.
And then, like I said, years later, you find out the boxes are sometimes worth more than the game inside. And it's like, oh, wow.
What kills me is that I actually did keep my boxes. I kept them until about 2006. And I was cleaning my garage, and I'm like, I've had these things for 20 years. Why do I have this stupid box? And I literally threw a lot in the trash. The only original box, I kept two of them, Super Mario Brothers 3 and Mega Man 1. But when I was going through those tough times for about 5 years, I needed money. I needed money. So I actually sold that box for Mega Man 1. Box alone, I sold it for $300.
For a piece of cardboard.
Then that now, it's like now I'll never get that again. And that box was pristine. Like, that's why the guy was willing to pay $300. I mean, it had every little insert things people forget. It even came with stickers, for example. People don't even know that it came with stickers. But yeah, there was all kinds of little things about it. They were all just in there. Like, man, I wish I hadn't done it.
I know, I think earlier I told you I traded the copy of Final Fantasy VIII for that Lunar Silver Star story. The reason I did it, I'd actually bought the game Lunar Silver Star Story about a year or two prior to that from GameStop, and it was used, but the box was in mint condition, and it had the hardbound book inside and the little cloth map and everything. And I was so proud of that thing. And I think I was like a junior in high school at the time, so I took it to show a buddy of mine, and I put it away in the locker and locked it all up tight. That evening, I went to get out at the end of the day to go over to his place, and it wasn't there. Never did find out what happened to it. My school's full of rednecks, so it's not like there's a lot of people there that were gamers. So it was gone. So when I had a chance to trade for one again, I hadn't even beaten the game yet. That's why I traded it. It was like I hadn't even beaten it yet. In hindsight, I wish I just said, "Can I borrow this and beat it?"
Yeah.
But I've still got it, and somewhere I've still got the book because he had the book, but he didn't have the cloth and he didn't have the box. And I'm like, I look down, I'm like, I wonder what that would be worth if I still had it all in the shape it was in back then. I'm afraid to look it up because I'm afraid it might make me cry all over again. But again, even then I wouldn't sell it. So
right,
it could be worth all the money in the world, and unless I'm selling it, that doesn't mean anything. So
do you specifically collect for any system?
Not at the moment. The place I was at, I was playing. I wasn't really happy there the past couple of years, so I was wanting to start collecting. But I was like, well, let's wait till I move because otherwise it's just more stuff to move.
True.
I've still got a decent little stack of like old PS1 RPGs and stuff. Because back then, anything that was in a box that was extra thick that had the two sides to it, you knew it was like, okay, there's got to be something special here. It's got more discs.
Yeah,
that's kind of what got me into RPGs. Is actually when I got Final Fantasy VII, I had went and mowed lawns to get the money to buy it, and the game I was going to buy was I wanted Metal Gear Solid. That was the game I wanted, and I went and worked and got the money for it. And I went into the store and they wouldn't sell it to me because I wasn't old enough. So since I didn't have an adult with me, I bought the game next to it that also I could get, and it was Final Fantasy VII. I didn't even want it, but I was upset, and I got home and I was like, oh, great. Well, let's see what this is.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't even really know what I was in for, and I started playing it. I'm like, oh my God. Like I said, I rank as one of my favorites of all time, but then I got a kick out of I love, like I said, I mentioned like Kadikarus. I love a lot of his videos, and there was one of his, and he's like, I just don't like Final Fantasy VII. And I was like, huh. It does go down to opinion for gaming. And I love the fact that when I heard that, I was like, part of me actually was hurt by it. But at the same time, I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm like when yours was Metroid, I was like, I wasn't even that into the game. I enjoyed it, but I never beat it. But it made me actually, you're listening to you talk about it, especially on the retrospective, made me go back and start playing through it again. I still haven't beaten it, but I did get further into it. It just, time, parenting, and how that is. Yeah, I'll get to it eventually. And there's a reason like none of my videos have really been based on RPGs except for lists, because you want to do a video looking at an RPG, you got to play it first.
Yep. And yeah, as soon as I did the Chrono Trigger retrospective, people like, do Final Fantasy VI. I'm like, I don't know. It's going to be a while because like the amount of time just capturing footage.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no way. And especially like Chrono Trigger. I mean, that is one that I felt like was really worth putting all that time into, but to get different endings and everything, that was a nightmare. That's the hard part of that. Like, that is so much footage, so much gameplay time.
The worst one I've had trying to make a video was I did a look at What Remains of Edith Finch. Have you ever played it or heard of it?
No.
It's on, I think, all the consoles that are out now. I know it's on PC because I played it on Steam. It's one of those, the walking sim. And the premise is you're going back to your family home to basically look into finding out the stories behind how everyone else died. You're the last one of the family. You're going back and looking at the old stories. So it's very much, each one is like its own level in a way. That it's got its own mechanics on each story. And it's really cool. And it's really sad. But you can beat it in about 2 hours. So that's why I went for that one. I'm like, I can do this one. I just got to put 2 hours of video capture in, and I'm good. And then my video capture didn't sync properly. So I did it again. It's
only 2 hours.
So then 2 more hours. I think all in all, I put 12 hours into it. So 6 times I think I went through. And eventually I still had to go and find someone else's, no commentary playthrough and download to get some clips because they just wouldn't work. Because the ones I had just wouldn't sync properly after 6 times through. And I was like, I hate doing this, but I've played it enough times. I put the work in.
So that reminded me of something. Did you actually play Chrono Trigger have you beat it? No, you said you did, right?
Yeah, I've beaten Chrono Trigger. I beat it on the PlayStation version of it.
Okay, so no spoilers, but there's this kind of important moment when Chrono and Marl re-meet again. They're on top of this like precipice with a tree. It's kind of a like iconic scene
Yeah.
Well, when I played the game through, it was the first time I had played it in a long time. Like I wasn't really thinking. And I was playing that with Frog. And that scene plays out a lot differently with Frog than it does with Marl. Like Marl hugs him and everything. So I didn't have the footage.
Oh.
I needed that footage. So what did I do? This is nuts. I found the sprites for Marl and I took a shot where Frog was not there and I made it still frame and I animated Marl. I found a clip of it. I didn't want to just use someone else's clip, and also it was very blurry anyway.
Yeah.
So it wasn't going to match. So I used my own footage with Chrono on the ground, and he kind of wakes up and he looks, and I animated every single frame and lined it up. So she goes on the ground, she hugs him. Like no one would know, but that's the kind of like behind the scenes work. Yeah, but that's the kind of behind the scenes work that like people have no idea like what goes into a video. They really don't. I think I'm gonna actually start doing some like commentary things for Patreon, like kind of behind the scenes, just kind of tell all those little stories. I was experimenting with it. I think it might work because
absolutely.
There's so much there.
Yeah, even with mine, even the simplest ones, there's always a story behind it. I'm like, the story is honestly more fascinating than the video. And I was like, yeah, I'll talk to friends of mine. I'm showing them this. I'm like, yeah, see that part there? Well, here's what happened.
Another cat's coming in.
I think I'm gonna be a kid this time. Probably it is a kid because it is about 10:35 here. So before we start wrapping up, you got to like, what are some future plans for like what you're doing with the channel now?
I
mean, we got the new series that you started.
Yeah, the new series is definitely one plan. Another plan, I'm trying to streamline things because I recognize it takes a long time for me to put out a new video. So I have to finish. I made a commitment from the very beginning to finish a certain number of episodes of the series Is It Fun? Now, for whatever reason, those videos don't get that much traction, but I have to complete this. And one day it will all make sense. I did an interview about 3 months into my channel. I was on a podcast with Games31 and Metal Jesus, and they used to do the podcast All Gen Gamers. And they asked me the same question, what are your future plans? And I'm like, I can't talk about it yet, but one day I will. And I'm not there yet. I have to finish this series before I can unveil that plan. But that is a big part. And I can't wait to see if my master plan actually works that I've been planning from the very beginning. So that's one thing. You know, I've never actually launched Patreon, but I just came up with this really cool plan. And I just announced it to my patrons about I recreated the original Fun Club club. Like I recreated the membership card and the welcome letter and all the stuff that comes with that, and put together a package. And I'm going to be giving away prizes. Like I gave away a gift card as the first thing to the current patrons before I like unveil it. But I bought like a Switch and a boxed copy of Kid Icarus, like NES that I want to give these things away. I want this to be like to kind of harken back. Nintendo Power and Fun Club, it was about being a club. It was about the members. It wasn't about like, you get access to me. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
Who wants that? Like, that's not a prize. That's not a reward. No, but what is like the interesting details, the layer beneath. Like with Nintendo Power, you had behind the scenes featurettes and sneak peeks at what's coming up. But you also had the prize. You had the players pulls prize. And so it's the Power prize. And I'm trying to like really create something that's fun and a throwback that kind of fulfills everything I try to do with everything in my channel. It's nostalgia, entertainment, information, and fun. And can I do that in that too? So I've been trying to work on like an ad, and I recreated like I don't know if you remember those really old Nintendo commercials where there's a guy sitting in front of a TV and it's like introducing Metroid, and it like shows the guy jumping around or whatever. Yeah, so I recreated that for this. Like I'm really trying to do this throwback thing. But then in terms of the video itself, the videos themselves, so I want to do some Is It Funs, and I want to do some Nintendo Power time machines, like kind of a throwback. But I definitely have a lot written already for the next Declassified on Zelda, and the next retrospective, which will probably be Donkey Kong Country. I've already bought like some board games and figures and the Super Nintendo box with Donkey Kong. I'm trying to get some of the
nice.
You want to get those really good shots that'll bring people back, So it's a lot of times there's a big investment in trying to make the video, and most of the stuff I buy is for the video. So those things are kind of the main plans, but I want to take it in a new direction and do what I've been doing, but I always try to push it a little further. That's kind of the plan.
That sounds great, man. Like I said, one thing I know a lot of people, I've talked about, you get into the trap on YouTube too, when you're like, okay, this is what works, this is what I got to do. But
yeah,
I think anyone that falls into that too long, that actually can be the downside. Because like when I first started doing this and asking people their thoughts on it, the one thing that I kept hearing from people, and I agree with too, is that, yeah, a lot of times people will come in, you get them in the door with whatever the content is, the theme of it, like whether it be like you're focused on Nintendo or someone's focused on this kind of thing or that. But usually they stick around because of the people, because of who's doing it, the personality. So, like I said, for me, I get drawn to the ones that if I feel like what's going on is genuine, if they're being real, that's what keeps me. And I think that's once you get that, then it's like, you can't be afraid to try something new, because worst case scenario is everyone comments and goes, well, that sucked. And you go, well, I tried it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So worst case scenario is you wind up with a good story about something you tried that failed.
The best case scenario, though, is you find something that you like and is working that people love.
So, and you'll never know if you don't try it.
You got to test things out. You got to like kind of spread your wings and try all these different experiments and find something that works. But when you do, yeah, you really got to run with it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I said, for me, like when I started doing the interviews, it's the first one or two. Well, I've got like 5 or 6 of them now total, and that's including some of the wrestling ones I re-uploaded onto this channel. But they never have been the things that are like the best thing for views. But for me, I'm like, the fact that you get to network and meet other people that are doing this too,
absolutely,
is like, that makes it more than worth it. And I'm like I was telling my wife when I first started doing it, I said, this is a lot better than going, hi, I'm this guy that makes videos. Can we be friends?
I'm actually inspired by you. I think this is such a cool idea. It's really good.
So I've been sending out messages, and like I've got, for me, I'm like I told my wife, said if I get one message back for every 200 requests I send out, I'm like, that's still enough to get started. I said, because to me, it's like everyone I've messaged to, and I've tried to stick with this. Of course, eventually it'll have to grow more, but anyone I've messaged is people that I'm also a fan of their content. So it's easy for me to be like, no, I'm not doing this as I'm a professional interviewer. No, I'm a fan, and let's talk about the things that you do because I like them. You make them, why not? And that's to me, it's a different kind of interview, because I don't, like I said, I'm sure you've been with people that are doing this a lot better, that are a lot more professional in their setup and have the structure of how they're going to do it. I don't do that. Only because
well,
my technology won't let me.
Yeah, it's more genuine. I think, Joe Rogan, he really blazed the path for this new style. And I think that people are longing for it. They don't want to see something that's highly edited, where you piece together the image that you're trying to portray. They want to know if someone is who they say they are. They want to find out like really how they think, how they, communicate. I think it's great.
To me, it's if it's just a conversation, then I've always the idea of meeting new people and talking to them, especially about things that shared interests, and gaming is such a positive shared interest that we've all got, because we were all kids. We all know the feel of opening up the new console or the new game and being so excited by it, and sometimes even getting the ones that are duds and being like having to justify it because, well, it's what I got.
Yeah.
Like I had Shaq Fu and I actually enjoyed it as a kid.
Well, that's common. I feel like there is something good in pretty much every game.
It's just hard to see it. I played it until I loved it, because it's hard to see it
when you come to a game later and there are so many better experiences. But yeah, I'm the same. I remember seeing someone just totally smashing all over Spy versus Spy on Nintendo, and I had that game, and I admit at first I was like, I don't get this. But once we figured it out, I mean, that was one of these early multiplayer games, you're trying to sabotage each other, and it was really fun.
Oh yeah, there's two videos I made that I was really I got sad making. Is I did one for the original Ridge Racer and one for the original Twisted Metal, and going back and playing them again. As a kid, I loved them. And I went back and played them now, and I'm just like, I see how poorly they aged. And I'm like, oh no, I'm almost tainting my old memories of these games. But
that's terrible. It's weird though.
A friend of mine's like, I love that game because he saw my video. He's like, why did you hate on it? I said, I'm just being honest. I said, and that's why I said in the video, I loved this game. I'm upset that I'm not enjoying it so much now.
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, that era, it just does not hold up. Like our memory of what it looked like and played like, and then you go back and it's so, so much like a short draw distance and like pop-ups and fog and jagged, poor textures, and it's like choppy. There's so much wrong that we didn't see. Like we just glossed over it.
It was all smooth and perfect back then.
We thought it was. But it's weird to me that you have like Nintendo, which it does not get that. It doesn't feel like that. Graphics still look crisp.
A few N64 games don't look quite as nice as I remember, but they still look really nice.
Yeah, I mean, there are some that look great, but others I'm just like, wow.
Well, the actual Nintendo ones, like for me, in Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time, both still look really good for considering the time.
Well, what was weird to me with Ocarina is like I played the 3DS version through, and that's how I remember it, looking like 3DS. And then you go back and play the 64 one, and you're like, oh, it didn't look like the 3DS one. It didn't quite look like that at all.
Yeah.
It holds up. I mean, they still are. They do hold up, but not like, I mean, we're at a point now. Even I think like around GameCube era, I feel like games had reached a different level where they still look pretty good. But those were growing pains. It's almost like Nintendo 64 was Atari for 3D. Yeah. Where Atari, you knew what they were kind of trying to do, but Nintendo did it well, and Super Nintendo did, and Genesis basically did it perfect. And then they had to reboot that and started it over with 3D. And I mean, there's been sort of similar growing pains in the VR space where I feel like it's getting really good, where it had some troubles in the past, but like they're starting to really get it. And it still has not gone full, like top tier mainstream. I mean, people like it, but it's not like everyone's like, now everyone's like, did you play God of War? Yeah, that was awesome. You don't say, did you play this VR title? Like, huh? What game?
Yeah.
I think we will get there though. Like they have made serious strides. Yeah. And Oculus is fantastic.
That's one thing I've yet to really get into. I'm wanting to see what getting like the PlayStation VR stuff because my kid's interested in it. So am I. I told him I just want to get it so I can play the Resident Evil 7 with it because that game already like I tried playing it when it was on PS Now and I got maybe 20-30 minutes into the game and I was just like, my stomach's upset. I'm done.
Wow.
And I don't know why, because there's games I used to love them as a kid, all the scarier games. In fact,
you're getting old.
I'm really considering going back and playing some, like now that I've got a camera set up for my for my PS4, I'm thinking about doing some live streaming on scary games because why not? They bother me now. They didn't used to. Back then it would have been boring, but now they actually bother me. So
if I'm going to jump on the couch, if you go hide or squeal,
hey, that's more views, right? Whether you're laughing with me or laughing at me. If you're laughing, you're having a good time, and that's what I care about.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like I really just like to have fun myself. I figure if it's amusing to you, then it's going to be amusing to other people.
Well, so there's always someone out there that's going to laugh at it.
Right.
All right. Well, we've been going at this for almost, close to 2 hours here. So this is
nice.
I think the longest one we've done. It didn't feel that way to me.
Really? Good.
I just looked at 10:48, and I think we got started at like 9.
Yeah, we talked for a while before, but yeah. I mean, it flowed really nice. That was great. Thank you.
Yeah, well, like I said, where can people find your Patreon, and do you have merch?
I have like the shelf under my videos, but that's not really been a big focus to me.
Okay.
Like I feel like the merchandise is the video. Like that's what I put the work into, and I want people just to enjoy that, what I've done there. So yeah, NES Complex. It's pretty much just history retrospectives, and I try, like I said a few times in this, I try to make things entertaining. Nostalgia is really big to me, trying to convey that feeling so that people, they are brought back. Information and fun. If I can get all those things, that's the teacher, that's the historian, that's the goofy like person I try to be.
That's a big win, right?
If I can pull them off, I feel like it is. I think that gives people something to really enjoy, and that's aside from me just personally having fun, that's what I want, is people to enjoy it.
Like I can say for sure that I certainly do. Like I said, when something new was coming out, I was like, I got to check this out.
Yeah, every 3 months.
And there's plenty of time to soak it all up for the next one.
And it really does mean a lot to hear any kind of kind comment about things. I don't think you ever get tired of knowing that people like what you're doing.
So anyone watching this has got this far. If you're into binge watching, his stuff is easy to catch up on because it's not coming out daily. There you go.
Yeah, I don't even know if I have. I think I pulled down a lot of stuff that wasn't in the main series, so I don't even think I have 100 videos. But yeah, thank you.
Oh, like I said, absolutely. Thanks for doing this with me, man. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, dude. It was really good to meet you and talk to you finally after all the tag back and forth on Twitter and stuff.
So we'll definitely have to do it again sometime down the road too.
Sounds good, man. Keep in touch.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, you said you got some more projects going on. You'll eventually be able to tell some more about your big plans. So I'll have to get a hold of you when it's time to talk about them.
I can't. Definitely, man. Definitely. When I'm ready to reveal the big plan, I would love to come back and talk about it. I need to talk to as many people as possible when that happens, because it's like it'll be 10 years in the making. It's gotta go with a splash.
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
Dive right off. Make sure everyone gets it right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks for checking this out. Again, I got Chris Woodside here, NES Complex, not NES Complex. If you say it that way, a lot of some of his titles might sound wrong. And if that's the case, you're wrong, not him. He's a teacher. All right. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.